50 years of anything, right, is incredible. But when you hear stories from each group in each decade, they're all just so different and similar at the same time.
We loved being the first women's team on this campus. I was working as a student assistant in the admissions office, and Billy Wood was working there at the time. And we just started chatting, and I said, you know, we need to get a women's basketball program going here. What do you think it would take? So he started talking to Coach Stevens, who was the AD and the baseball coach at the time, and he was like, if you can find some women that are actually interested in getting it going and you think they'd be committed to starting a program, then you have my blessing.
Well, you know, when I first came to Randolph-Macon, I was good friends with Rachel Anderson, and she was the women's tennis coach and women's athletic coordinator. And, you know, they were trying to kind of establish women's athletics. And I was working for Hanover County Parks and Recreation. And I decided I'd just come over and see if I could help with women's basketball since it was a relatively young team. You know, it was a slow process, but also we know that Title IX across America was beginning to expand, and I think women's athletics in general across the nation was about to explode, and so we were trying to keep up.
I think the 90s would be defined as the growth of the program, and we had a lot of success. My senior year, 95, 96 was the big year when we won the ODAC for the first time in school history, then got to NCAAs, got to the Elite Eight, and we lost. But it was an amazing run. And then they started to get bigger recruits and more talent, and the program's just taken off from there.
The culture in the early 2000s, I mean, we had a ton of fun as a team.
You know, that national championship runner-up team, they loved each other, and many of our teams did. So each one of those players wanted their teammate to excel as much as she did.
We set the goal. We wanted to be at the national championship, and we did that going back the prior year. We had lost in the ODAC championship, and the national championship, the Final Four, took place at Virginia Wesleyan, and we saw that environment and very immediately knew, like, we don't just need to be ODAC champions, we want to go to that national championship.
You know, while you're going through 50 years of women's basketball, you don't think about the history that you're making. You don't even think about, oh man, do I have to fight for that again? And you don't realize in the long run, in the future, how worthwhile those struggles and fights and all of that are going to be in making history.
I think we all know we're in a time where women's sports have been elevated, and you know, I'm so thankful for those that have contributed to that. And so to be able to celebrate 50 years, it is an incredible milestone, and I'm frankly just happy to play a small piece of that 50 years.
I feel like the future of women's basketball here is truly limitless. You know, we've reached a lot of different pinnacles before, but I hope, you know, a national championship is next up on the docket. I think our culture here, it's honestly, it's that, you know, pride in our past, faith in our future that I've always felt here, that it's such, you know, that legacy that has come before the groups that are here, that they know that those alumni groups that have really, you know, paved the way.
Because we were so involved here, we're still pretty involved. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that in those first 2 or 3 teams, 3 women went on to become trustees of the college.
Everyone wanted everyone to do well. It was absolutely a team, which I think is why it was so successful. And Randolph-Macon, you know, being smaller allows you to have that tighter-knit community.
It's just a special place to have spent 4 years, but to then also come back and visit and continue to be a part of women's basketball, a part of the college.
You know, it's just not possible to mention every person's name, but I want them to know how valuable each one of them have been to the success of the program, and I just can't say enough that I hope it just continues.